Today on the PROLIFE podcast, apparently the media just found out that adoption and abortion aren't the same thing, and they're a little salty. We need to talk about this. Grab your coffee. Let's get started. Happy Tuesday, PROLIFE family. So, got your coffee, got my coffee. It's been a weird couple of weeks. So, there's good things to talk about, bad things to talk about, I guess. So, we need to get started. I'll introduce the circle of friends around the table. Kim Schwartz, Media Communications Director, Education Associate, Veronica Arnold-Smither. And our awesome guest host today, Dr. President John Seago. How's it going, man?
Good. Happy to be here.
Happy to have you here. We decided we wanted to talk about this since you're kind of an expert on brain death things. Recently, actress Heche tragically died in a car accident, and the Entertainment Weekly headline caught me as very awkward. Though legally dead, Heche on life support in hopes of donating her organs.
Yeah.
So we have a dead person on life support.
Yeah, it is confusing. I mean, I know it happens a lot, but since it was highlighted in, since she's a Hollywood person, you know, it's much more prominent than most cases. And you were saying this happens all the time, but it still trips me as so weird. It's like August 5th, she had this horrific accident. Yes. She crashed into someone's house, and the person in the house was injured too. And she was taken to the ER, and it wasn't long before she was declared brain dead, but she was kept on life support for many days. I forget exactly how many days. Yeah. And it sounds like they were able to take one organ from her. And then they took her off life support a few days after that. So I just feel like it's a great opportunity to talk about brain death and organ donation, because there's so many ethical issues here, whether they did everything perfectly right or there's some weirdness going on. So yeah, you're the pro. So can you tell us a little more about brain death first, and then maybe organ donation?
Yeah, so brain death is a huge topic in bioethics right now. Right. There is a committee that is rewriting model legislation for states to adopt, dealing with brain death, defining brain death. And so because of that, everybody in bioethics is, publishing their 2 cents, saying they should change it this way. Some to make it more lax and more subjective, some to make it more clear and objective. So that's kind of going on. But here in the real world, with regular people, there's just massive confusion about brain death. And so like a headline like this, I hear this headline from like a legal ethical standpoint, like this is what happens, is like there are several stages whenever you show up, and there's a determination that you're dead, there is a declaration that you're dead, and then there's a death certificate. So like there's these step processes, and most doctors know how it goes, but regular people are like, wait a second, you're saying, they may be brain dead. Does that mean, what exactly does that mean? And then you have patients like Jahai McMath that was declared brain dead. They had actually death certificate was issued, and then she was transferred and lived on. So massive confusion around this. But this is not surprising. This is not atypical, is that you would have someone who doctors agree this patient is likely brain dead, but they're still going to be on life support. They're still going to be receiving life-sustaining treatment so that they could be an organ donor.
Right. And
so there's nothing abnormal here, but it is interesting that when a story like gets highlighted, then the public and Entertainment Weekly.
That's so crazy. Are there any statistical odds of her waking up, or she's passed on now officially, like she's off life support, but other people, like, have they woken up from these declarations? So
there's a really great article by a bioethicist, Robert Trogg, who talks about brain death is a fiction. It is a legal fiction. It's not necessarily reflecting a biological reality.
Yeah, we talked about that in, I think, episode 3. You made a really good analogy of like how we both wear glasses, Veronica and I, and the idea of legal blindness isn't a biological reality necessarily, but it's a legal criteria of whether or not, I should be driving without my glasses.
Yeah. So that's why there's a lot of debate about this. And so there's some pro-lifers and there's some bioethicists that just want to reject it altogether and say, we need to be done with brain death. It's not a real, biological state. It's a injury. It's maybe even a disability, intellectual disability, or, brain injured patient who may never regain consciousness. But to say dead, that we have no obligations to them, because that's really what it means. If you have somebody in the bed, in the hospital bed who is dead, we treat that body differently than if they were alive. And we have more obligations, we have more required to do more for this live patient than the dead one, okay? So making that distinction changes what? Now, if it's just a dead patient, then we can use their organs to benefit others. But if they're a live patient, then that would be awful. That would be terrible to cause their death to benefit others.
Dystopian.
Right? Mm-hmm. So that's what's kind of at stake here, is what are obligations to these two different patients? And since the biology is still being debated about what's going on in the brain, then, that's really kind of what's at stake here. The debate about the law is brain death. It's to get to that declaration, you have to do a certain amount of tests.
Right. And
each hospital picks which tests they'll do before they make a declaration. And they're not uniform.
So it's not standard across the board. Like one guy says, we'll do this really simple thing, and somebody else says, we'll do this really complicated thing.
Yeah. So even here in Houston, depending on which hospital you go to, and they could be right across the street from one another, you're legally dead in one and you're legally alive in the other.
So confusing.
And that's
terrifying.
Where our position at TXRTL Life comes in, is we do have, we are skeptical of this whole concept of brain death, right? Yeah. But at the very least, let's provide some objectivity. Let's provide some, reliability that Memorial is going to treat you the same way as Methodist does, that a hospital in Dallas is going to treat you the same as a hospital in Fort Worth.
This makes sense.
And also the kind of the steps, and we get calls, from patients' families that are so confused. And they said the patient is likely brain dead and that they're going to run some tests. And then they say, okay, well, they've determined that the child is, the patient's brain dead. But in 2 days, they're going to declare it. And it's like, wait a second, what's going on here?
This is a whole process.
So there's multiple steps, and we have patients calling us at patients' families calling us at level, different levels, confused. And so one thing that we've talked with the legislature about is providing one protocol in law, because law can get involved. Whenever we're talking about life and death, this is pretty important.
Yep.
And doctors are not always the best of communicating what stage are we at. We're at step 1 of a 3-stage process. Well, if a doctor came to me and I didn't know, and they said, your loved one is, likely brain dead, I may be tempted to think, oh, that's it. It's done. I don't need to ask more questions. I don't need to ask for a second opinion. I can't get more tests. It's end of conversation.
Yeah.
The word death feels very final.
Yeah. Especially if it's a tragic situation, which death usually is.
Yeah.
Then the family's going to be reeling and not know what questions to ask.
Yeah, and that's why putting in some very simple patients' rights about making sure patients know and their family know that they have the right to a second opinion, another doctor to come in to run tests, that they have the right to make sure that there are different types of tests. There's some that are done at the bedside, and then there's some more imaging, like a blood flow test that is kind of the gold standard to determine if there's any brain activity. There are different levels. And so if they're just doing the tier 1 tests and then jump into a conclusion, that's a problem. And so whenever we go to a hospital and we're representing a patient, we always ask, which tests did you do? And if they didn't do, the kind of more determinative ones, we always ask, okay, we want a blood flow test. That's the family needs to for them to be okay with this, for
Right.
them that we're going to need more testing. So it's really unclear. So a story like this, there's a lot of confusion around it because that's just how the system works. The part that raises the most skepticism is the relationship between brain death and organ donation.
Yeah, that's like a whole other story.
Yeah, and that's why
It's like, is
people
this good or bad?
get more concerned about this and it could seem like we're getting out the hats, like the conspiracy tinfoil hats out here, but historically this is brain death. The concept of brain death didn't come out of a vacuum. It came out of experts who were reflecting on the need for organ donation. And that's a historical fact that, talking about the first doctors in France that were looking at the brain death concept, and then moving into the 1968 Harvard committee that put together the recommendations on brain death. They acknowledged in the paper, the first report to establish it in America, that brain death is a real thing. They acknowledged this would benefit organ donation.
Yeah.
Okay, so they are closely tied, and that's why we have to be extremely careful when we look at like the policies of how are we protecting, these patients from other, third parties. It's not the doctor, it's not the hospital, it's a third party organization that comes in for the organ donation. So how do we protect against them? It's a very controversial topic, but the public doesn't know this.
Yeah.
I mean, regular people don't know this. And if you're going into, an emergency room after a tragic situation like this, are Texans equipped to make sure they're asking the right questions? No. I mean, it's
I
really
feel like
dangerous.
we have this conversation around the office even every year or so, and anybody who's new and hasn't heard it once or twice is always like, wait, what now?
Yeah.
I can be
every time.
tier 1 dead and they just start pulling stuff out, but I'm not really dead, but once they pull stuff out,
Right. I mean,
you're dead.
We'll often get a new employee or a new batch of students who have put the little heart on their Texas driver's license that says they're willing to be an organ donor, which can be good or bad, but if you don't know all the details of what that means, it can be very alarming. And maybe Anne Heche, I mean, she willingly wanted to donate her organs. She didn't know that she was going to die in this way, but she was willing to donate her organs, and so that was that. People were talking about this as one of her final wishes, which so many people would view that as beautiful and honorable.
Right.
And they talked about like the honor walk after one of her organs was harvested/donated. The hospital did an honor walk for her, and then they had the funeral.
Yeah.
Like that all sounds very giving.
Right.
But what if she were actually still alive?
Yeah.
What if they actually carved her up before she's dead? I
Yeah.
mean, that's the question we really need to be asking.
Yeah.
And it's terrifying.
And I mean, so we kind of have there's multiple fronts, right? Just like with the pro-life movement, when you look at patients' rights, we're kind of dealing with some issues. Our pro-life advocates up in Washington and Oregon are dealing with a completely different landscape. What's going on in the rest of the world is opt-in, opt-out debate of making everyone categorically organ donors, and then you have to opt out. Right now we have an opt-in system.
Right.
So, I mean, there is we can just look into other contexts and see where this is headed, because in that debate sounds like, well, it is such a good thing. It is giving life. Actually, give life is the rhetoric that they use. And so for pro-lifers, that sounds like a great thing.
Yeah.
We would love to benefit someone else, in this circumstance. But, there are too many hesitations, there are too many concerns for us to categorically recommend be an organ donor on your license. Now, I have, medical power of attorney. I have, talked to my wife about my wishes. If it's clear that I am dead, organ donation can be a great act. It can be something that helps others. But I'm gonna leave that to my wife, who's gonna be making the call, not just an emergency department staff member looking at my license and saying, okay, this means we don't need to start life-sustaining treatment or need to do that intervention. They wanted to be an organ donor. Let's get there.
Because the hospital staff can overinterpret your license and say, oh, you're an organ donor. Great. They'll overinterpret that to say oh, well, this is the same thing as a DNR or something like that, or you don't want any treatment at all. And so that's the concern there. And I think that there's still that spirit of generosity. If you want to donate your organs, you can place that decision in the power of your medical power of attorney or your loved ones who are making those decisions for you, you can still be an organ donor. It's not just like when you sign up for your license, that's it. You either are or you're never going to be. That's not how that goes.
Right. Yeah, and so I think that's really the big concern, is making sure that we are actually empowering patients and their surrogates to make the decisions in that circumstance, and they have all the right information. They know they got the second opinion. They know they got the test that they can rely on, and then make a decision. And sometimes it sounds like we're harsh on hospitals or doctors, but I mean, these critical decisions, they need to be in the hands of a loved one that knows that person.
Well, that means families are going to have to be comfortable talking about this, and that's hard to do. And I know so many people, even relatives, who are extremely uncomfortable talking about what they want if they were ever in this kind of situation, or what they want their care to look like even after they're elderly. And thankfully, my parents are very open to talking about that. My dad doesn't like it, but he'll do it. But my mom is like, here's what I want, write it down. And I'm like, that's so great, because it makes it easier. It's, first of all, it takes the pressure off the family instead of having to guess, what would my loved one, what would my parents would have wanted. But also it helps prepare you for reality and makes death part of life. Like, we don't have to be so scared of it. So,
and as called, but as Americans, we're very bad about death awareness, right? We just want to ignore it. We're going to live forever. And it's not something we need to talk about, but it really is a disservice to our loved ones who will be there making the decisions. And I hear some people say, well, I don't want to be a burden, to my family. That's what it means to be a family, is to be a burden to one another. That is the human condition, that it's a
lovely burden.
We're dependent upon others, just like our children are dependent upon us. Like, one day we're going to be dependent upon them, and to make these decisions. And so, I mean, they're not fun conversations. They're uncomfortable, but they're absolutely critical, and they could save your loved one's life if this is what they want, that they would want to do the extra testing, that they would want to do the next intervention before making this decision. And so it's absolutely critical. And here at TXRTL Life, we're going to keep working on ways to help people have those conversations, to help people, kind of be prepared for those circumstances. And it's a really important aspect of the pro-life movement, that we're not death deniers, that we're awareness that that's part of life.
We're the opposite. Like, it kind of seems most of the rest of the culture is saying, like, oh, we're going to live forever, death deniers. We're the ones saying, let's talk about this, be prepared, make those decisions and everything.
Yep.
Well, so this is all based on the United States, or maybe some other westernized countries. One of these days, we're going to have to bring you back and talk about China, which is forced organ harvesting. Quite a different topic. I know we don't have time for that today. There's your teaser for another episode.
But if somebody doesn't like how skeptical you are of organ donation, we can say, okay, we can at least agree on some terrible things that are going on in the other side of the world.
Forced carving up of the Uyghurs in China is a very different thing than putting a heart on your license. But with both things that we need to be worried about, but one is absolute oppression and murder, and the other one is like a confusing bioethics situation that has risen to prominence because we have such advanced technology. It's a very different situation.
So very good things, and things pro-lifers need to be vigilant about.
There's a lot more to cover in this. I know, oh my gosh.
Media's being crazy again.
These days, that's crazy is normal for them.
True. Okay, they're being normal.
But we're kind of running tight on time. We need to discuss this other article about, can adoption replace abortion? They're pretty salty about the answer here, but we're going to talk about that after some other information.
Save the date for Boots on the Ground. It's an awesome pro-life conference coming up January 28th and 29th. Come to Austin, Texas with us to march to the Capitol to celebrate the end of Roe v. Wade, to commemorate Roe v. Wade, and to learn from expert pro-life speakers on how to keep Texas pro-life forever. Come to Austin with us and hear from Ryan Baumberger, our keynote speaker, who shares his personal story, and so much more. Book your tickets today, bootsonthegroundtx.com. See you in January.
The Supreme Court just overturned Roe v. Wade. This is a historic moment. Now we have a bold, groundbreaking agenda for the next steps. First, we have to enforce our laws and make sure liberal district attorneys don't give abortionists a free pass. Second, we need to expand the life-saving alternatives to abortion program. And third, we need to save hospital patients. Do you believe in this vision? Go to texasrighttolife.com/stand to donate now and save lives.
Welcome back, friends. We're in between. We're having breaks, and we end up with these other conversations. We're gonna have to do a China episode. There's gonna have to be a China episode. Yeah. Okay. The question: Texas Tribune. Can adoption replace abortion? Experts say it's a lot more complicated than it sounds.
No kidding.
Well, we've got 2 days now until the trigger ban goes into effect, and all of the illegal abortion penalties get much steeper.
Yep.
So, yeah, this is going to be a hot item in the news here for a little bit. The quote here that really kind of grabs your attention, and this is from a law professor at A&M, Giga Maggie's.
So sad.
Adoption doesn't do what abortion does. It does not end a pregnancy. It does not relieve the burden of pregnancy. It does not avoid the health risk of pregnancy. It does not alleviate the psychosocial harm of relinquishing for adoption. It is not a substitute for abortion.
I can't.
Womp, womp.
I can't.
Kim, start us out.
Do we have a longhorn that would like to rebut this first?
First of all, why? Like, so yes, that's the point. Adoption and abortion don't accomplish the same goal. The goal of abortion is to end the unborn child's life. So yes, it's a good thing that adoption is not a exact substitute, like they're saying, for abortion. And the whole idea is like, okay, the idea that people, whenever women seek abortion, the idea is like, oh, well, I don't have the means to raise a child. This is going to be difficult. And so I need an alternative. And so the pro-life side says, okay, if you're not ready to be a parent, we can help you with the resources that you need. We can pay your rent. You can check with our previous episode with Sylvia Johnson. Or if you're not able to do any of that, you might consider adoption and providing a family, providing parents for this child if you're going to have a difficult time. And that's such a gift. That is such a loving option. Yeah. And it's just shocking to me that it shouldn't be shocking to me, but they keep moving the needle of before it was like, well, if you're pro-life, you should adopt the child yourself. So we're like, okay, let's promote adoption, everybody. And now it's like, no, adoption and abortion, like abortion's really just the best thing that you can do.
They go to great lengths in this article to frame pregnancy as the problem.
It's disgusting.
Yeah, I think they're just so desperate to make a case for abortion, and they're mad that they can't have it, that they just want to paint everything as bad. Yeah. And they just talk about all the psychological issues that the birth mother is going to have and how traumatic it is for her. And I'm like, yeah, we actually do need to help these women because they're going to need a lot of counseling. And we've had some really great lectures. We even have one on YouTube of Rachel Bush's family, and one of her sisters chose adoption. And she talks about how incredibly hard it was and how she refused help for a while and how important it was for her to get help. And then she finally did, and she was so glad she did. But she refused help because she was so upset for a while. But it's like, adoption is still a good thing. Yeah. There will be fallout, but it can be helped and it can be beautiful. Yeah. And they're making it sound like adoption is the problem.
I think the craziest thing about this article, and I read it multiple times because I was like, is this as crazy as
it does feel like is this really? Are they really saying what I think they're saying here?
Okay, so one crazy thing is they don't talk to any pro-life organization, any adoption agency that is pro-life and promotes this, any of the counselors that are talking about the role of adoption that could play in this woman's life. And so it's a complete straw man because what they're making it sound like that we're saying is, just choose adoption and it's a magic wand.
And all your problems
go away. We have never said that. My parents, I come from a big family. My parents have adopted children out of the foster care system. They've adopted my little sister who was, they adopted her right when she was born. They've adopted several of my sisters who were teenagers when they came into our family. my parents are pro-life activists that would not say it is a magic wand.
Right.
Yeah.
They give the testimony that it is very hard, and there are struggles and there are challenges, whatever type of adoption you're going through. It is hard. They still had ministry with the birth parents. They had, going through with the foster care parents, trying to minister to them as well. Like, yeah, it's messy, but the great thing is that in the mess, you don't have killing an innocent human being.
Nobody died in the process.
That is the best part
It's a
about
win.
this mess.
Yeah.
And so I think that's it's a straw man in saying that pro-lifers over here with signs saying this will solve all your problems. No. I mean, this is a difficult situation. The woman's life is very complex. She has barriers that she doesn't see how she's going to get past. But our commitment has to be not to do harm, not to do something evil while trying to solve those problems, while trying to help her. And so that's just why, and I was really disappointed in the Tribune, and sometimes they include a pro-life voice, sometimes they don't. And this is really unfortunate that they didn't even have someone in the article who could explain, hey, we're not saying it is a 1-for-1, but also the other thing is that it doesn't acknowledge all of the difficulties after an abortion. It doesn't even leave room for there are any consequences.
It actually denies that there are any.
Yeah.
There's a quote in there that says something to the effect that there's no evidence that abortion leaves a post-abortive mother with any psychological trauma whatsoever. And then it says, but statistically, birth mothers who place their children for adoption have this level of psychological issues.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, that's such a party line. Like, holy cow.
Yeah, that's the naivety there. They're accusing us of being naive about adoption doesn't come with any baggage. Adoption is just this magic wand that'll solve all your problems. That's what they're saying about abortion. Abortion is the magic wand that'll solve all your problems. And that's just so untrue. This is basically propaganda. It is so naive to say that any difficult decision, any major decision in your life is not going to come with grief or difficulty or trauma. Like, this is going to happen.
Because we're all human. I mean, we're all going to have that, whether we are parenting our own biological children, parenting adopted children, whether you are the biological child or the adopted child. Like, we're all very messy human beings. And it makes me want to bring out my Jesus freak a little bit, because in the Bible it talks about, like, we have to care for the orphans and the widows. So we are all orphans and widows. Like, we are all messed up, and we are supposed to be caring for each other and helping each other out. And
so I think, for as TXRTL Life, as pro-lifers, we can't back away from this conversation. We can't back away from promoting adoption. I think we're a little shocked that that's the response, but we have to be now more than ever committed to making adoption as seamless as possible. It's not a magic wand, but there are things we can do when it comes to the cost of an adoption, to the efficiency of an adoption, clean up our foster care, that we're not hurting children that are in the care of the state. There are things like we have to do, and we've been talking with legislators about how do we make adoption more affordable? How do we make the process faster so that children are placed in a loving home faster, that they're not having to stay in the custody of the state longer? And then our foster care system is really broken, and there are some great legislators who are working on what can we do, but it is going to cost money. It is going to take some political pressure from us, from pro-lifers, to say, no, these are important issues, because when we're talking to pregnant women and talking about the option of adoption, if she's looking at the headlines and she's like, oh, is my kid going to end up in foster care? That sounds like a terrible place to be. That is terrible for her. And so we need to do better to make sure that we're protecting these. And at TXRTL Life, we've been working on that. So we're going to promote some legislation. We're going to endorse some of the solutions out there. But it's not a magic wand. Nobody's saying that. Yeah. It is difficult, it is messy, but it has to be done.
It's so beautiful. Adoption is just a beautiful option, and beauty and pain can exist at the same time.
They usually do. Yeah, both of my parents were actually adopted. So my dad was adopted as an infant.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, he's never known his biological parents, and he didn't really want to. He was he's just kind of a happy-go-lucky guy. He was like, I'm good where I am. But then my mom was adopted out of a really weird, messy, like, divorce situation. And there was a lot of trauma and a lot of weird stuff going on. And she has just overcome so much. It's amazing. So when you hear both of them talk about it, they've come from totally different situations. But it's interesting to think, like, I would not be here if my parents had not been adopted. It's amazing. So thank you to all of those people who helped make that happen. Yeah. And then another weird thing about this article, I just have to point it out, is that they complain and call for action to improve the various systems, like pregnancy help and foster care systems and all that. And that's good. Like, we always want to call for more improvement, but they don't acknowledge a single resource that's already out there. Right. And they even call out two legislators who we've worked with a ton, Steve Toth and Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick. And they said, like, they were not available for comment. And I was like, are you kidding me? Like, how much time did you give them? Because they're some of the first people that would be like, absolutely, I agree with you. This is so important. Like, Steve Toth is one of our top guys, and he's been helping so much with the A2A program and funding millions worth of dollars into pregnancy resources and adoption agencies. And it's like, come on, guys, did you do any research at all? Or are you just trying to talk your party line yet again?
It seemed like a pretty one-sided article.
Yeah.
Shock.
That's disappointing.
I know, sad.
But more to come. We'll be talking about adoption as we get to the session and what we can tangibly do to make sure that, yes, it is a good option and that women will be able to see that.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Is it beautiful? Yes. Is it messy? Yes. But nobody died.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Good point.
Well, so that's all the time we have for this week. We thank you so much for watching, sharing, liking, subscribing, and all of those other things they tell you at the end of these videos you should do. We appreciate it very, very much. Share it with your friends. Change some hearts and minds. It's how we're going to save lives and change the world. We will see you guys next week.